G'day everyone, my name is Hoi. Adobe has released new features and enhancements in its July 2024 version. So let's walk through them all. Okay, so before we get started, let's just make sure that we have the right version of Photoshop. My version is 25.11.0. Now, if your one is not at least this version or later and you have to update it, just go to your Creative Cloud icon here, go to Apps, View Updates, and then check for updates. Now, if your Photoshop needs updating, your button should show something like Update here. Once you've got it updated, just press Open. The first time that you open your updated Photoshop, you should see a window similar to this. Not exactly the same because this is a screenshot that I downloaded from the internet. So you may not have this adjustment tool here, or you might have some other tools here. But that's neither here nor there. What we're interested in is these two options here. Create new tool group, or reset it to default and add the new tools. What I've done was reset the toolbar to default and add new tools. Now, if you've clicked out of this, maybe you've hit this do not add new tools by accident. Never fear, my friends, because you can get back to this option if you want to later. So if you have done that, just click and hold to go to your edit toolbar, and then you can restore defaults here, and then just press done. Okay, so the first feature I'm going to show you is the selection brush tool, and it's found within the lasso tool family. So if I click and hold, I can see the selection brush tool here resides within the lasso tool. It's got the same keyboard shortcut as the other tools, which is L, and you can see that I've got a brush tool, and it works very similar to a brush. Well, it is a brush. So if I just click and drag and make a circle, it does what a brush does, and then it also fills in the interior. Now, it doesn't have any auto detection, right? It's just a freehand manual brush tool. If I want to remove or subtract from the selection, it's just the same as any other brush tool. So pressing Option or Alt on the keyboard, I can just remove that selection as like that. I can also do the same thing here by just clicking on Subtract and then just doing the same thing. To see the marching ants as you would with any selection tool, you have to click out of this tool. So I'm going to just use the Move tool by pressing V on the keyboard, and then I can see the selection here. I can go back to the pink overlay by pressing on the selection brush tool here, and at the moment I've got my opacity at 100. Now from here, I can do whatever I want as with any other selection tool. For this use case, what I'm going to do is just generate something. So I'm going to use Generative Fill here. If you don't see this contextual taskbar here, go to Window and then just make sure that contextual taskbar is selected. So let's just type in a prompt. And at the moment, just remember we've got it at 100% opacity. That will become a little bit important later. So I'm going to click Generate here. And you can see that it's generated a wobbly boat here. Like any other generative fill, you can cycle through the variation by clicking on these chevrons here. This is sort of a mangled boat here. I'm not sure what's going on. And then this is kind of a bathtub variation. So you can also look at the variation under your properties panel here and then cycle through the same thing. Now you can see that it's tried to blend the boat with the background, but because it's at 100% opacity, my selection brush tool, it hasn't done really a good job of it. So let's try that again, but with a reduced opacity. So I'm going to turn this off again and just reduce the opacity here. Now I can click and hold and slide this across to a opacity that I want, or I can just simply press, say, 3 for 30% or 4 for 40%. So I'm going to press 3 actually for 30%. And let's just draw a circle. Now be careful to join your endpoint with the start point. It does not fill in the interior if you don't do that. So I filled it in, and let's just use the same prompt, I should say, boat, and press Enter. Now, this is so subtle, so I'm just going to cycle through that. You can see that there's a boat here. Let me just change my cursor. There's a boat here which integrates a lot better with the background. And then there is no boat, just a lot of fish. So you can generate it again, but the point here is that the opacity, if I just switch on my selection brush tool again, the opacity of 30 does a lot better of integrating the variation or the generative fill with the background compared to 100% here. Now the selection brush tool reminds me a lot of the quick mask mode tool. Now you can do this very, very similar stuff, including the opacity sliders with the quick mask mode. So I'm not sure whether Adobe is releasing the selection brush tool with the idea of improving it later. So the next feature is the enhanced detail. So after you've generated an image or a variation, you may need to enhance the detail. So this is quite blurry here. So if I go down to my variation here, you can see this icon here. So that will enhance the detail. So if I click on that, it should enhance the detail. Now, what does enhancing detail mean? It doesn't mean that it adds more resolution. It just tries to add more sharpening to it. So this is the sharpened image here, or the enhanced detail here, and this is the unenhanced version. So depending on your image, you can see a lot of difference, but in this image, you can't see a whole heap of difference. Now, the other thing to note is that Photoshop will generate another variation here, and it's not clear just by looking at these thumbnails here what these mean. So if I just zoom in a little bit or just highlight this a little bit, means that this is the enhanced version here, whereas this version, which is not grayed out, it is the original image here. I just wish that Adobe makes it more obvious, like put a sort of color code to make it more obvious which one's which. But for the time being, you just need to check out these icons here. Now, the other thing to note is that there is a minimum size of your variation before it can enhance. The minimum size that Adobe says on its website is 1024 pixels. It doesn't say, unfortunately, what that 1024 pixels represent, whether it's the area or the longer side. I have done some extensive testing, actually, that I believe it is 1024 on the longer side. But even on the longer side, it's not exactly 1024 before it enhances the resolution. In my testing, I've had to go up to 1500 pixels on the longer side before it enhances. So I'm assuming that it does depend on your image. So if you do get a message saying that, it's too small or it can't enhance your image, the most likely reason is that your image or your variation is too small. Now, the next feature I'm going to show you is Generate Image. Now, this isn't an altogether new feature. It has been in Photoshop Beta for some time now. All they've done is shifted from the beta version to the main version. So if you want an in-depth walkthrough of this Generate Image, you can check out my links in the description because I have done a full walkthrough. What this walkthrough is going to be about is just give you a high-level overview. Now, what is Generate Image? It's kind of like Generative Fill, but it generates an image on your whole canvas. Now, there are three ways to get to Generate Image. The first way is through the Contextual taskbar here. And remember, if you need to get to the Contextual taskbar, just make sure that you go to Window and make sure that is selected here. The other way is on your toolbar here, and you can see here that it's on this icon here. Now, if you don't see it here, just make sure that you follow my tips in the beginning of this video, which shows you how to reset the default toolbar here. So just very quickly, if you don't see it, go to click and hold this edit toolbar here, and just make sure that show this icon here is selected. So I've just switched it off. Just move that closer. So just watch this bottom part here. So click it on, it shows. Click it off, it doesn't show. So I'm just going to make sure that it shows. Press done. The other way is to go to your edit menu, and then it's down here on Generate Image. Now, the beauty of having it in the menu options is that you can assign keyboard shortcuts. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do that, but just know that you can assign a keyboard shortcut. Let's click on Generate Image. I'm going to click it here, and you can see that this has been updated with Adobe Firefly's Image 3 model. So now you can generate an image here. So let's just type in something very random. So maybe kangaroo eating an ice cream, something like this. Why kangaroo? I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I'm from the land down under, Australia. So let's click on photo because we want a photo. Now, what the reference image means is that if you have an image in mind that you want to replicate the style of, then you can choose that image. So I'm just going to click on that, choose my image, and I've already got this downloaded. So this is the image that I want to reference. So press open. If you don't want to choose your own image, there is a gallery here that you can select from. Now, the effects here are all the kind of effects here that you can see: layered paper, lighting, etc. So let's, for fun of it, click on isometric. For example, you can click as many as you want and then press generate. And this is a kangaroo holding an ice cream, not exactly eating an ice cream. So let's just walk through the variation. This is not too bad. It's even got its claws wrapped around the ice cream cone, and this is not too bad either. These, the check marks are, this is the reference image. The check mark means that you've used a reference image, and then this is the style. Now, it's also shown in here. So here is the reference image that I use, and the style is selected here. So I want to show you the next feature, which is the adjustment brushes. So in our toolbar here, it is set on its own, not within the brushes, but here it does what it says. It's a brush to apply your adjustments on. So let's go to our options bar here. I was playing around with it before. I was using the photo filter brush here, but I can go all the way up to the default, which is, I believe, the brightness and contrast. And what I'm going to do is just resize my brush a little bit, and then just brush on the areas where I want to affect the brightness and contrast. And you can see that I can just brush on it, and it's automatically brightening and making it, applying the contrast settings, the default contrast settings here. So here on my layers panel, it's created a brightness contrast adjustment layer. It's automatically created a mask and then applied the default brightness controls and contrast. Now, this is an ordinary mask. There's nothing special to it. So if you've done many edits after this, and then you want to change the mask for whatever reason, you can just go back to your regular brush tool, and with white as your foreground color, you can keep applying that effect. Right now, this is obviously too bright, so I'm just going to cancel out of that or undo, and then I can just lower my opacity. So lower my opacity and then just keep working on this. I can go back to my adjustment brush tool and then just keep layering on the effects here. So let's just say I want a vibrance adjustment. So I can just paint on top of this and just make it a little bit more vibrant. So the areas that I'm painting in will show the effect. And then if I don't want 100% vibrant, I can just dial that back. So you can see that the possibilities are endless with these adjustment brushes here. Wow, look at my screen. No, it's not an error. It's not a glitch. Do not adjust your computers. You'll understand why I split my screen up the way I have, because I'm going to walk you through the next feature, which relates to the image assets from the Generative plugins. That's a mouthful, and you're probably thinking, what? What is that? That was my first reaction when I heard about it all those years ago when I learned about it. So let me just show you what it can do first, and then show you how it's done. The first thing I'm going to do is you need a save image. So this isn't save image. You can see that by is untitled. I'm going to save this, go to File, Save As, and I'm just going to type in kangaroo, press OK, and you can see that it's saved here. And what I'm going to do here is just rename this. I can leave it as it is, but for the sake of this video and simplicity, I'm just going to rename this to Kangaroo. And the feature isn't renaming the layer, don't worry. It's doing this. It's adding .jpeg here, JPG, and just watch the side of this, my Finder window here. So I'm just going to press return on the keyboard, and it's automatically going to generate a JPEG file. Look at that. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm just going to press spacebar, and that it's exported exactly that image there. So there are also other goodness, but before we get on to the other goodness, let me just show you how to do this. The first thing, as I mentioned before, is that you need to have a saved file. You can't have an unsaved file, it won't work. The next thing to do is you got to turn on this image asset generator plugin option here. Now there are two quote unquote switches. One I like to call as a master switch. So if I go to Photoshop and go to settings, now if you're on a PC, I believe your preferences are under edit, and then go down to preferences somewhere down the bottom here and go to plugins. You've got to make sure that enable generator is selected. Just by turning that on doesn't mean that you can use it. You have to turn on the second option here. So go to File and go to Automate and go to Generator Plugins, and then just make sure Image Assets is checked. Now, I've seen some videos from popular YouTubers saying, well, there's a bug, this is grayed out. Now, if it's grayed out for you, you most likely haven't turned on the Enable Generator in your preferences. So after you've got those two steps, now you can do what I've just done. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm just going to do another trick. So if I want a JPEG and a PNG, I can add to this file name by typing, say, comma, and then put kangaroo. And then instead of JPG, I'm going to put a PNG. And I can do a kangaroo.gif. I can also do kangaroo.svg. Those are all the available formats. So the JPEG, the PNG, the GIF, and the SVG. Now the file name, which I've arbitrarily named it as Kangaroo, you can name it however you like. So just watch the side of my Finder window here. I'm going to press return in my layers panel here. And now it will auto generate this. So how cool is that? So this is a JPEG. Well, this is a GIF file. This is a JPEG. Just going to move that out of the way, make it a little bit smaller. This is a JPEG, PNG, and then this is a SVG. It's a little bit too big, but you get the picture. Now, there are also other super duper stuff here. I'm not going to walk you through every single nuance of this. I do plan to make a separate in-depth tutorial about this, so this is just an overview. The next feature I'm going to show you relates to bullets and numbering, and I think we're up to feature number 6. So here I've got some text, well, some lorem ipsum text, and I'm going to add in some bullets. So I'm just double click on my text here. I've used my text tool to select it all. And now I'm going to go to my properties panel, and here I've got the new bullets and numbering. And it's as simple as pressing the bullets. Look at that. So here you can see that I've got different types of options. I've got the round bullets, the dash, the hollow circle, and then the square. So I can also do it for numbers. So 1, 2, A, B, etc., etc., etc. Now, you can see that it has numbered even the blank rows, so you just got to be careful of that. If you don't want that, you've got to delete the blank rows. Now, the other way to access it is also through your window and then go to paragraphs. Now, the paragraphs panel only shows these simple on-off switches. So whatever you have selected here, it will apply that default here. If I just select everything again, and then just note that if I select this here, it's got the round bullets selected. So if I turn off and on, that's what it's going to apply. And if I turn this one and turn this off and on, that's what it's going to apply. So it does give you a little bit less option compared to your properties panels. Same as your numbering system here. Because I've got these selected here, it's going to default to that. In addition to these options, there are limited bullets that you can custom create, and that relates to let me just turn off this. So I don't want this here, so I'm just going to turn it off. That relates to your asterisk, your hashtag, your greater than sign, and your plus sign. So if I press enter or return on the keyboard, see, it started my next bullet as the asterisk. Now, if I turn that off, I can also start another bullet with the hashtag. So I can put hello world, hello again. And I can do it for the greater than sign, hello, and so on, and plus as well. This only works for these limited characters here. Now, don't expect the bullets and numbering to be as technically complicated as, say, Word documents. Like, for example, I wanted to sort of increase the space between the letter and the number. I just couldn't find a way of doing that. The most I could find out is that, you can move the whole paragraph, to the right, for example, here, and to the left, but you can't increase the space between the numbering. So it's a good step in the right direction, but just keep in mind that you're not going to get full-blown word processing bullets and numbering. The second last feature I'm going to show you relates to the improved contextual taskbar for shapes and transform tools. So let me grab my shape tool here and then just draw a rectangle here. Now, ordinarily, if I want to change anything about this, I would need to go to my options bar here or my properties panel here. So if I want to change my fill, I'll go to here and then change my fill here. But as you can see here, my contextual taskbar has already got these details here, so I can just use these options here. So this is an ugly option, but it's here nevertheless. So I can change my alignment from center to outside. I can increase the dash line from 4 to 7 and etc. So I can also duplicate this. So duplicated a layer here, and I can round my corners just by using the option here in the contextual taskbar. There's similar updates to the transform control handles. So I'm going to press escape and just going to move this copy out of the way and select this one here. So Command or Control T to bring up our transform control handles. And you can see here that I've got more options in my contextual taskbar. I can rotate it counterclockwise, clockwise. I can mirror it. But for some reason, it's not happening. But you get the idea. It's always the case when you're filming a tutorial. Now, the last feature is a minor update, and that relates to the adjustment panel. So in my adjustment panel here, you can see that the single adjustment is positioned above on top of the presets. I believe that the presets was on top before. They've just moved it on top, or the single adjustment on top of the presets. So that's 8 new features in the July 2024 version of Photoshop. So if you've learned something new, or if you enjoyed this video, let me know about it. Start a conversation in the comments section. Feel free to subscribe. It's free. And hit the bell icon so you can get notified for when my next video is out.